Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues from all over the world. You are welcome to yet another interesting, and it will be interesting, presentation on the platform of the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies. Today, we are having the first female doctoral student to present on this platform. I repeat, the first female, by name Henrietta Omo Echalomi. It sounds like I would say up and there, Benin. Forgive me if I mispronounce Echalomi. Miss Omo is a doctoral student at the University of Ibadan, and you should be so delighted to have Baba with us, as usual, Emeritus Professor Sogolo, and I think you will be fully enriched after your presentation. I've seen Professor Muniodwa Olani, the immediate past Dean of Science, so you can see how multidisciplinary this is about. But more importantly, our colleagues from all over the world, we welcome you. Miss Henrietta is a full-bred UIT, one of those universities. Anyway, Akoka is #1. But we are not going to that debate, and I hope Baba will not take me off. She studied a bachelor's and master's in European studies with emphasis on Russian language and, whatever. She will tell us more about that. But what is important about this topic is the fact that she is going to present to us what I see as a decolonization of the state of knowledge. Why am I saying decolonization of the state of knowledge? You see, the issue of diaspora is important to study migration in its multi-dimensional perspective. And way back in 2001, a scholar by name Pierre Esther propounded this concept of that has to do with transfer of money, cash flow, and what have you from those in the diaspora to the homeland. In 2008, I was lucky to publish an article in the Journal of Global Initiatives at Kentucky State University on something similar, titled Forging a Link. The link between the Eco Club International, people of Lagos State origin, with the homeland. And today, Ms. Eshalomo will be sharing with us that of Warri and his Environ, connecting the homeland, but also decolonizing the triadic relationship that is so central to interrogating the diaspora. What exactly is the connection between the homeland? Are they able to recreate their homeland, culture, custom beyond remittances? And I will leave you to make a judgment of Ms. Henrietta. So please bear in mind, this is a doctoral student. Your comments should please be constructive, encouraging, and this is also the first female doctoral student. She is the second doctoral student to present since we started over a year ago. The first was this gentleman that is doing his PhD at Morgan State University, a beneficiary of a TED Fund Morgan State agreement. And he presented on birds, migratory birds. And I could see Dr. Paradoro nodding his head to remember. So please welcome Ms. Eshalomi to the platform. The title of our paper is Deserted Opulence, diaspora pseudo presence, and the question of development in Warri and Environ, Delta State. Madam, I will stop sharing so that you can share and also unmute yourself. You are a co-host, so you can unmute. Okay, I've asked you to unmute yourself. Unmute now. Okay. And then you have the platform to share also. Oh, by the way, before you start, you are also so lucky. I just saw the visionary of this center, Professor Abdallah Ubadamu. And you know, I was the immediate past vice chancellor. I believe the current vice chancellor will join us. And your supervisor, Professor Olaoluwa, is also on board. You are so lucky and blessed because with Baba Sogolo, Professor Adamo, and a host of others, it will be so beneficial as you complete your dissertation. Please go ahead, madam.
Okay. I'm actually trying to share.
You have 20 minutes. Yeah.
I don't know if you could share because
I should go ahead and share again. Okay, I have your updated one. Let me just go ahead and share your screen again. All right, go ahead, man.
I'd rather you share, sir. Thank you. Okay, good day, everyone. My name is Henrietta Omo Shalome from the Institute of African Studies, University of Ibadan. And the title of my presentation is Deserted Opulence, Diaspora Pseudo Presence, and the Question of Development in Warri and Environ, Delta State. Now, if you look at that topic, there is a sense in which it tells us about the ostentatious presence of the diaspora in the homeland and how that raises questions of development and possibly even challenges the diaspora agency as developers of the homeland. Next slide, please. Now, the concept of diaspora is a very slippery one, and that is why it has been difficult to arrive at a definition that is generally acceptable. However, this concept has always been explored against two dominant backdrops. Number one, as developers of the homeland. And that is why we have seen cities, we have seen countries rise above their socio-economic deficiencies to a point where they have been able to earn the status of developed countries and even as world superpowers. And in Nigeria, you bring it down to Africa, it's a sending continent. And even in Nigeria, you are seeing that even in 2018, an estimated 25 billion came into the country. And that is even through formal channels. So in other words, if we are to add informal channels, we'll see that that figure will shoot up. And that makes it the second largest inflow aside crude oil. Now, other studies have also talked about the fact that the diaspora is not always an agent of development of the homeland, meaning there are diaspora communities that are disruptive elements of the homeland. Why? How? They instigate wars, they create inequalities and poverty, they form political factions leading into political rivalries and all sorts. However, these are studies that have looked at the active engagement of diaspora in their homelands. There are also studies that have talked about the lackluster and lukewarm attitude of diaspora to their indigenous homeland. And literature has termed them as people who are ethnically ambivalent towards their homeland. And that is where you find the Delta State diaspora. And we will see that in the course of the discussion. Next slide, please. Okay, Delta State is a oil-producing state, and that we know. And from the introduction, we'll see that crude oil and diaspora remittances are the leading source of revenue generation in the country. And Delta State has a growing diaspora community scattered around the globe. However, the state is still largely underdeveloped. And so how do you reconcile a state having two leading sources of revenue, yet still in that position? This has continued to lead to the immigration of its indigents from the state and has affected the economic pedigree of the Delta State and Warri in particular. Next slide. Now you talk about Warri, you talk about Delta State. The first thing that comes to mind is environmental pollution. Environmental pollution and then its fallout, kidnapping, militancy, insecurity, ethnic rivalry, that's what comes to mind. Little attention is being paid to its migration pattern, culminating into diaspora. And so even when studies have talked about migration, they have not situated it within the context of diaspora relationship and how it induces development in the homeland. So this study explores Delta State diaspora relationship with their homeland, taking into focus the concept of diaspora, remittance, and development. Now, the aim actually is to shed light on the contrasting agency of the diaspora. Number one, as agents of development. And then number two, not as disruptive element, not also as anti-development agents, but quote unquote, agents of undevelopment of the homeland. And so there is a contrast. There's a contrast of Delta State diaspora being agents of development and agents of undevelopment of the homeland. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, so this research is guided by 3 questions. Number one, what are the causes of ethnic ambivalence exhibited by the Delta State diaspora? Number two, how have these causes challenged their diaspora agency? It has. We're going to see how. And despite the challenges, diaspora has still been able to push through the odds and still register their presence in the homeland. So we're going to be looking at the resilience of diaspora in registering their presence in the homeland and how that registration of their presence redefines the concept of remittances and development in the homeland. Next slide, please. Okay, we'll talk about the strategic importance of the diaspora, that we cannot overemphasize the importance and the indispensability of the diaspora. But then again, the concept of development, which is critical to the discourse of diaspora, is also a broad one. And so, especially when you consider it against the backdrop of urbanization. Now, what comes to mind first is buildings and all sorts. Okay, but then urbanization goes beyond that. Now, we'll look at urban growth. And please, can you compress the slide? There are strategic components of development because there should be initiatives, events, activities that would boost the economy, because this is what will attract and make the city appealing to investors, to returnees, to diaspora, to visitors, to tourists into the city. Next slide, please. Okay, now the study, even though it tilts towards urbanization, it is foregrounded in the theoretical framework of ethnic ambivalence. First of all, ambivalence is wanting one thing as well as wanting the other. Where a situation whereby an individual is caught in between conflicting but related interests. And so the individual does not really know which of the interests to prioritize. And so, but then he considers other variables and factors, and that helps him to make a decision to say, okay, this interest comes above this one. And so ethnic ambivalence is a situation whereby an ethnic individual actively rebuffs his original ethnic identity and possibly imbibes the socio-cultural practices of the host country and host city. And so the overwhelming realities in the host city possibly detaches the diaspora and pushes the diaspora further away from the homeland. The question now is, are there no other ethnic nationals in these spaces that connect with the homeland? And so the connections that should translate into remittances, so that the diaspora repatriates remittances to the homeland that will be used, that is needed as catalyst for the development, is withheld because the diaspora does not see the need. It does not have interest in the homeland. And that is the web in which the Delta State diaspora are found. Next slide. Now, it is an ethnographic study, and interviews were conducted with local diaspora in Lagos State and then foreign diaspora in London. Focus group discussions were held, 2 focus group discussions were held in the city of Warri. Now, participants in Lagos and London were actually sourced via snowball technique. 40 in all were interviewed. Now, the choice of Warri is born out of the fact that despite the fact that Asaba is the political and official capital of the state, Warri still remains the economic capital. It still remains the social capital and the cultural capital. Warri is a melting pot, and it is home to 3 of the 5 ethnic groups. So that makes it suitable for this study. Next slide. Now, some of the peculiar causes, I say peculiar causes of ethnic ambivalence that the Delta State diaspora exhibit towards their homeland. Now, extant literature has detailed some causes of ethnic ambivalence. They are not here because they are already in literature, but then I'm going to talk briefly about it. Those literature talked about people from a multicultural ethnicity have the tendency to be ethnically ambivalent. People from people with minority ethnic status, individualism, intertribal marriage, people with language endangerment. These are causes of ethnic ambivalence. And it is not like the diaspora did not talk about it. They profoundly echoed it as contributory factor to the cause of their ethnic ambivalence. However, these are some of the peculiar cases that they mentioned. Now, insecurity, which we are going to talk about in the next slide. And you talk about insecurity, talk about social insecurity, civil insecurity, economic insecurity, and these are the challenges in Warri. Now, poor value system, as simple as it may appear, the diaspora loudly echoed it to say that basic courtesies you don't find among the people. Courtesies like, I'm sorry, please, thank you, can I, help me? You don't, it's like a right for them. And then someone stands you up and comes and says, it's in Africa, man time. They find it, according to them, responses from them say they cannot cope and live in such a society. And then there's this perceived primitiveness of the culture because the diaspora, according to them, they live in a society that constantly advances its sociocultural practices. So they think that the cultures in the homeland are too primitive to identify with. They say they cannot return, according to one participant, I cannot return to a society that would take me decades backward. I mean, the world is evolving. These cultures are closed. They are not evolving. And so they feel that they cannot connect with home. And then there is the fear of the supernatural. What do I mean? Witchcraft. Now, in all of the participants from both locations of diaspora, none of my foreign participants talked about witchcraft. It was only local diaspora that talked about witchcraft. And so you begin to ask, I don't know witches in other ethnicities. But then again, it goes back to what other existing literatures have talked about, that multiculturalism and all sorts are causes of ethnic ambivalence. And then poor infrastructure. Infrastructure is a Nigerian problem. But then the problem, the responses from especially the foreign diaspora, they said Delta State is a wealthy state. It is an oil-producing state. And just like other oil-producing states that have, to some extent, reached an appreciable level of development of infrastructure in their individual states. What is happening to Delta states? And so they feel that they cannot connect, according to them. I can't live in a society where there are no good roads. I can't live in a society with poor medical facilities. And then corruption and bad governance. What do you make of a government who is in power and then favors his ethnic region while in power? Or how do you reconcile a local government chairman who installs streetlight, according to the response from the diaspora, who installs streetlight, and then someone in the community gets him angry, and then he says, uninstall the streetlight. These are projects that were carried out with taxpayers' money, and then allocation meant for the public good, meant for the general good of the people. And for your own self-interest, you ask that the streetlights be uninstalled. And so the diaspora find the environment unimaginable to stay. Now, in spite of all of these causes, there are still diaspora members that have gone ahead to register their presence in the homeland. And so, please, can we go down a bit?
Oh, down?
Of the homeland. How do the diaspora even see the homeland? For some, the homeland is a retirement taboo. For others, the homeland is a stopover. And then for others, the homeland is just a burial site. Please, next slide. Now, this is the response of one of my participants in London. He said, it is only in Warri that one cannot run gen till 12 midnight because of insecurity. My cousin left the gen to run till that time because of me. And apparently the cousin said it was going to attract, usually they turn it up by 10, that it was going to attract armed robbers, and asked him to leave and return to Lagos earlier than he planned. And it was like, how do people even live in such unsafe environments? And then, like I said, other forms of insecurity abound in the state. Next slide, please. Now, this said, I can only return to the homeland when I retire, and not even in my early years of retirement. What does that mean? It means that after this kind of person, or after this set of diaspora would have used up their vibrant years, their energetic years, infusing their ingenuity, infusing their creativity, in pushing the frontiers of other bigger cities and other bigger countries where they now return to the homeland, feeble, weak, and possibly even be a burden to the stay at home. And how does that translate? How has that building translated into development of the homeland? Maybe aesthetics, but definitely it has not added any economic value to the place. Why? Because government cannot even draw tax from it. So how does diaspora even conceive the homeland? The homeland now becomes a cemetery where people die and then they are buried. That is their understanding of the homeland, because they seem not to come to terms with the fact that development of the homeland also lies in their hand. And the next person says, evil people are too much in the homeland. It is when you go that they will not remember that you are alive and then strike. And then you return to your base and begin to experience predicament. I mean, there are witches everywhere. It is even a foreign phenomenon that I have explored. And then people in the East still go back home. People return home. So why is the Delta State home different? It is different because it is also connected to what existing literature has told us, that people with ethnic minority status have the tendency to be ethnically ambivalent. Next slide. And so, when I say projects are part of urban development, but should not be limited to buildings and projects, but complemented by other growth-inducing activities, like one, functional public institutions, diverse infrastructural provisions. The youths are helpless in Lagos State. Engage them. Sectoral diversification, transformational projects are things that the government and the people should reach and put in place. There should be conscious and focused remittances, not just the ones meant to build houses. I mean, in Lagos, because Lagos was actually a standard of evaluation by the diaspora. In Lagos, you see diaspora repatriates goods. You see people gather in pockets of places in Lagos State just to buy things. You see people come, I want to buy a fry pan. You see them gather, fry pan, kitchen utensils, home appliances, children's clothes, children's wares, and all that. People come to patronize. You don't find that kind of economic activity in Warri. And these are ways that the diaspora interfaces with the homeland and contributes to the development of the city, of the state, or of the country at large. But you don't find these engagements in the Delta State homeland, in Warri precisely. That is even the economic capital of the state. Now, there should be concerted effort, focused remittances, not just the one meant for buildings. Next slide, please. And so this study has been able to pay attention to diaspora's relationship with the homeland and how they perceive home, how they register their presence in the homeland. Now, diasporas, using the ethnography study, the study has established the fact that Delta State diaspora has a fragile relationship with their homeland, and the fragility is born out of the fact that they are ethnically ambivalent. And then they draw out the negatives, which are the causes, some of the causes that we have seen, while forgetting that development is a conscious and concerted effort. So what we have in Delta State is an emerging landscape sponsored by the diaspora, emerging landscape recorded in exquisite and beautiful houses. But then the question is the diaspora, is the Delta State diaspora an agent of development? The answer is yes. Has that connection translated into development of the homeland? The answer is no. And so this study in general challenges us to advance the discourse of ethnic ambivalence, the discourse of remittances, and development in the homeland. So I'd like to thank all the listeners and then the organizers of the seminar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. Thank you very much, Ms. Henrietta, for that brilliant presentation. Again, Ms. Shalomi is a PhD student at the University of Ibadan, and she is the second PhD student since our establishment a year and a month ago. She is the first female PhD student to present to us. The topic is so interesting, and I have asked you if you would like to make a comment to chat with me in the chat box. If not, you will need to then raise your hand if I'm able to see you while I scroll up and down. I have seen Professor Abdallah Ubadamu, the visionary and founder of this center, the former vice chancellor, immediate past vice chancellor of NOUN, as indicated. So I'm going to go in that order, and I'll ask all of you to unmute shortly. Then we will have Professor Emeritus Professor Sogolo to follow in that order. Dr. William Elmina to follow in that order. And I'm not seeing any other hand interested in asking questions, but I'll take those those three for now. And if you would like, just raise your hand or virtual hand. So please, the following people should kindly unmute. We have to be mindful also of the 10:40 that I promise, so that we can move on to the mandatory training. Professor Adamu, please go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I have a few observations. Some of the observations deal with the technical presentation and others deal with hard data. The first observation is that in future, you can just simply skip all the theoretical framework, conceptual framework, literature review, and all that. If you are given just 20 minutes to present, just get to the point. If people want your theoretical and conceptual framework or whatever it is, they can do it in a larger paper. But the whole idea behind 20-minute presentation is for you to tell us exactly what you did, how you did it, and why you did it, and the outcome of what you did. That's number one. Secondly, your data does not seem to focus attention on remittance. That's why you seem to be suggesting that there is a lot of relationship or link between remittance and development. And you even quoted figures that says you have billions of dollars being sent to Warri and Delta State. So if that's the case, then it means that the remittance from diasporans who are living, Deltans who are living outside the country, as well as the allocation by the federal government of Nigeria to the state, should transform the state in such a way that those respondents that responded to your focus group discussions need not have run away. So why there is a disconnect between what you said they have been remitting, what they have been given by the federal government, and the lack of development in Delta. So I hope you'll be able to connect that one. And then the FGD that you did seemed to focus attention on insecurities, supernatural thing, and all that kind of superstitious stuff. But what is the educational level of these people that you did your FGD with? Because we have a lot of people who come to UK from Delta State, stay, and then go back. So why is it that somebody who was a mechanic in Warri, who went to UK through smuggled routes, now feel that there is insecurity in the country, when he and people like him are responsible for the kind of degradation that the country is going through? So I would have loved to know the educational qualification of those FGD subjects, so that we can now know that when they talk about switching off their generator at 10 o'clock, we know that we're dealing with intelligent people rather than just simply just some unplug some of the society. So I think the critical question for you finally is that there should be a link between the remittance and physical development. I would like to see, for instance, a housing estate or a development project or borehole or whatever it is that has been done as a result of the remittance by people who live in the country. Just like in Egypt, for instance, if you go to Cairo, a lot of the development in Cairo was because of the Egyptians who are living in Gulf countries who were sending money, and with that money, housing estates were being built. So these are my observations. Thank you, sir, for giving me an opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir. And then we'll take Dr. William thereafter.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prof. I would like to thank the presenter. I'm very concerned about, hello?
We can hear you, sir.
Okay, I'm very particular about the methodology, that is used, particularly just like Professor Abdallah has just mentioned, when you're having a focus group discussion. There are certain indices that may be difficult for a researcher to measure. For instance, you talked about the fear of supernatural. How do you measure supernatural? And what is the relationship? Like he said, he pointed out these persons that you have had the FGD discussion with, how sincere or how real. There are so many, in the African culture, there's this fear, particularly when you're dealing with measuring certain variables. One needs to be very careful because it becomes some kind of perception. So I don't know how she's going to really, merge some of these things. So it becomes some form of a perception study rather than, because this data or statistics that might arise at the end of the day may not actually give us the intention of which the scholar actually wanted to really take a look at. So I'm very concerned about the variables that are actually measured here.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams, unmute, please. I ask you to unmute. You're signing on. Can you unmute, sir?
Yes, Prof. I've just spoken now. Yes, Prof.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm the one that just spoke now, sir.
No, that was Professor Sogolo. We didn't hear you.
No, it was me, sir.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Professor Sogolo. Wow, that is you. Okay. Let me unmute Professor Sogolo. So please, Prof, kindly unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, I was on the road and I was struggling to get to my office before you called on me. I really am very excited about Ms. Shalomi's presentation for two reasons. She is from two of my homes, from Warri, where I grew up, and then from Ibadan, where I spent over 27 years as a teacher. And I'm excited about it because she was talking things that I'm very familiar with. The Warri. One of the aspects that I think she did not emphasize too much was the cultural aspect. You see, Warri is a multi-ethnic society. You see, and so when you talk about the zeal to invest or the eagerness to invest, for instance, compared to the Igbo society, the Igbos go home, they develop their society, build houses and so forth. I'm saying the Igbos from the diaspora, they do that easily. But the Warri, because of its composition, it's almost like Lagos. If you want to develop your property, it's solely for business purposes, and they do not have this cultural drive saying that, oh, we must develop our own society and so forth, because of the cosmopolitan nature of the Warri society. And where you have the Igbos too, the Urhobos, the Isokos, the Jaws, and all, combined. And so that's really what makes Warri very interesting for those of us who grew up in that city. I attended a secondary school called Urhobo College, and I'm Isoko. And so, my interaction was from Shekiri, Igbos, and so forth. That's the nature of Warri. And so when you're talking about the drive to invest in Warri, and you call it as if it's your home place, Warri itself is like a foreign place for many of them. That's the kind of interesting thing about Warri. Many of people who are in Warri, it's as if they are in Lagos. They are in the diaspora. And, when even those who leave Warri and go out to Lagos, and when they return, they don't still get that commitment, I believe. I didn't quite follow the methodological aspect of the presentation, but I think it's a very, very clear and lucid presentation and very interesting. Thank you very much. I congratulate Ms. Shalomi for this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the encouragement. Again, this is an extract of Ms. Shalomi's doctoral dissertation, ongoing thesis. And as such, I believe she will look into some of these views. In fact, I begin to see so many opportunities in this presentation. I begin to see a paper that could be titled, Warri is not Lagos. Lagos is not Warri. Contextualizing multidimensional perspective of the diaspora. I begin to see poetic verses, and in a private encouragement, I've told her to check the article titled Forging a Link, Diaspora Activities of Eco Club International relating to Lagos. And the attempt to give us a comparative analysis is also important. But at the same time, I will also piggyback on Professor Adamu's note that in a presentation, you have to have option A, B, C. And sincerely, sir, I'm so thankful because she has been on top of it as late as 8 o'clock today. To her credit, she called me and we discussed, and she said, this PowerPoint, I don't think that is the way PowerPoint is supposed to be. And she told me the way she wants to, which is what she presented now. And I think it saved her the comment about your PowerPoint is too loaded. But she said in somewhere, I wouldn't mention the place so that they will not start holding on to her PhD. That is the way they want it. So, but at least she has been able to reach out. But again, I will allow her to respond. And before I do that, before I forget, associations, you did not mention that. Perhaps it's in your larger thesis, but you must be able to identify the many associations, and then you should be able to create a chapter. It's another article for journal publication. And that is the way I'm looking at it. The future is bright with this, cutting edge research, with this attempt to decolonize what those of us that have worked on diaspora, published on diaspora, has done, and to relate, specificity in the case of Warri, and also bring out the possibility of in-depth research using ethnographic methodology, as Professor Adamu, regularly admonishes us. So, Ms. Shalomi, you have the floor, this virtual floor, and then we have 6 minutes to round up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The first question on, I'll start with the question on supernatural witchcraft. Really, you can't measure it. And I raised that question with the local diaspora, but I cannot trash it because it was heavily dominated in their responses. I mean, nothing less than 18, I interviewed 20 of them, nothing less than 18 of them said they were scared of the supernatural. And then they even gave examples of how their parents died and even how they themselves were victims of spiritual attacks. So that cannot be empirically measured, but then they mentioned it, and they mentioned it vigorously, and that is why it is actually appearing here as one of the causes of ethnic ambivalence by the local diaspora. And then the next one talks about the link between remittances, talking about developmental projects like boreholes and all of that. Yes, associations in both local and foreign diaspora talked about them having monthly dues and then even taxing themselves. But the problem is that by the time they are able to raise money, what happens? Contest begins. There is this rivalry that, okay, so let me for example, Ugeli Progressive Club in UK, they've raised money and they feel that, okay, we should give our community a borehole. The problem will now be, so which part of the community do we situate it? And it begins to raise issues and challenges. And that is what I've also titled Politics of Remittance. Because they begin to say, okay, if we say we want to give it to Afisere community, they begin to say, so which street in Afisere? Because the diaspora also has interest. Members also have interest to say that, okay, they want their individual street or community to be developed. So they have that problem. They are usually not able to reach a consensus to say that, okay, regardless of where we come from in this society, we must put this thing. No, there is always that contestation. So what happens is, whatever it is they raise, most times, and that's the problem of multicultural society, whatever it is they raise most times, they now use for support, ceremonies. Okay, there is this member whose father died and all of that. And that made a lot of them leave different associations because they feel like they cannot commit to a cause that the only thing that happens is we are going for one party, we are going for this and for that. So that's what happens with the remittances that is connected to the Delta State diaspora. And then the qualifications of the discussants. It was a mixed one, but largely dominated by people who have at least OND. So they have an idea of what I was talking about. And because they are the stay-at-homes and feel they are actually feeling the impact of the underdevelopment in the state. So they're able to relate to what is actually going on in the state. And let's not forget that prior to the 1990s, late 1990s, before the crisis that rocked the city of Warri, nobody talked about diaspora. Nobody even talked about migration. Why? Because Warri was at its element. The oil companies were there. Nobody looked up to the diaspora for it. It does not give back to the society because the society, the environment, the city was self-sufficient. And now asking them, looking up to the diaspora now for remittances is like a burden to the diaspora. So educational qualification for the discussants were relatively advanced. So they knew the phenomenon that I was interrogating. I think that's all the questions.
Okay.
Or is there any?
Thank you very much. Before we sorry, are you done?
Yes, I'm done.
Arietta? Okay. Before we round up, we have about 5 minutes or 2. I've asked the following to unmute and just say something to at least encourage or point this young scholar into the right direction. They are all female. Ijoma Ladele, Dr. Aneto, and of course the Professor Lani And of course, the man that is in charge of the institute in Ibadan, Dr. Olaudua. I've asked all of you to unmute and say something, 20 seconds. Anyone can go.
Good morning, sir, and good morning, everyone. I just want to encourage the researcher. I want to tell her she's fantastic. I enjoyed every bit of it. And of course, from my alma mater, greatest you are. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, one of those schools. Okay, I don't know of any greatest you are. I know of Akokan. You can unmute yourself, Dr. Aneto. Dr. Ijeoma Ladele. Okay, maybe she's out. Professor Lani, I've asked you to unmute. And then Professor Kagbari to crown it off. Professor Kagbari, I can see you now. I know you are driving. We thank you, sir, for always being there. I think you should have one or two things to tell us, to share with us when it comes to this specific case study. I've asked you to unmute, sir.
Okay, good morning all. Just to say that the study is a worthwhile one, and I want to commend the presenter and also ask the presenter to take cognizance of statistics on remittances, as Professor Damu has earlier mentioned, because what is actually the amount of money that is coming in to Warri or to the state from diaspora remittances, so that we'll be able to know whether or not it is adequate or not. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I think on that note, Dr. Olaoluwa, can you unmute yourself, please? I've asked you to unmute so that we can round up. You'll be the last to speak. To allow me to unmute. Yes, sir. Dr. Ladile, I've also asked you to unmute. I just saw your chat message now.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. I'm not a doctor yet. Thank you for the presentation.
Receive it. Receive it.
Thank you very much, Prof. I also want to appreciate.
Amen.
Amen, sir.
I'm prophesizing now. I'm a pastor now.
Thank you, Prof. I want to appreciate Ms. Eshalomi for the wonderful presentation. And my own contribution is on the development aspect of the remittance, what the money is being used for, as Prof also mentioned, looking at utilizing the resources, back home in terms of development. That will also be a very important dimension to the work. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Professor Olaoluwa.
I would like to thank everybody for their impactful contributions. Somehow I've been behind the wheels in the past couple of hours, and network has been particularly problematic where I am right now. But I am sure Henrietta has harvested the comments, and we shall return to the drawing table to look at how we may incorporate these comments into making the work a much better research outcome. I would like to thank you all.
Thank you very much. Dr. Olaoluwa is the director of the Institute for African Studies, University of Ibadan. And I believe he's also the supervisor of Ms. Eshalomi. I thank each and every one of you, and I thank the presenter for having the audacity and the calmness to do it. You see, try and reach out to all these professors, all these contributors. I'm sure you will be so impactful of their knowledge. Thank you again for coming, for joining us, and then we can migrate.
Thank you, sir.
The workshop on yearly.
Thank you, sir. Well done.
Thank you, sir.
God bless you.
Thank you. Very
Thank
nice
you very
one.
much.
Thank you, sir. Thank
God bless
everybody.
you.
Goodbye,
Thank you.
old
Well
man.
done. Bye-bye,
Bye.
sir. Bye-bye.
This is,
Thank you.
Bye.